Nidnod's mistake. It was winter time, and at Dame Twinkle's school of little pupils were getting excited about Christmas. "I'm making a pincushion for my mother," said little Fifo. "And I'm making a pipe rack for my father," said the brownie, who was head of the class. "Dame Twinkle, are we going to have a concert?" cried little Pippin. "Oh, do let's." "Of course," said Dame Twinkle. "You will be able to sing some of your songs and say some of the nice poems you have learned. Of course we shall have a concert." "Oh, Dame Twinkle, we shall be able to decorate the schoolroom well, shan't we?" said Nidnod. "Oh, let's make it really beautiful, shall we?" "Yes, we will," said Dame Twinkle. "We will go out into the woods and fields and fetch in all kinds of nice leaves and berries for decoration." "I shall thread holly berries and leaves in a long string and loop it round the lamp," said Fifo. "I know how to do that." "I shall bring pine branches and stand them in vases in the corners of the room," said Pippin. "Pooh! Why bring dull pine branches full of nasty sharp needles?" said Nidnod. "Why not bring some really pretty boughs? I think I shall bring in oak boughs. I do think their leaves are so pretty. They're shaped like feathers." Everyone stared at Nidnod and laughed. He didn't know why. He glared round at them. Everyone was always laughing at him. "Laugh if you like," he said, "but I tell you oak leaves are very pretty. Yes, I shall go and bring in some chestnut leaves too. I love the way they spread out their big finger leaves. I shall put them around the pictures." Everyone laughed again. "Now, now," said Dame Twinkle, with a very bright twinkle in her eye. "No more laughing and chattering. Soon we shall make a list of things for Christmas decorations, and you shall each bring something." So 2 weeks before the concert, the list was made. Everyone said what he or she would like to bring. "Holly berries and leaves," said Fifo. "I'll bring pine branches," said Pippin. "And I'll bring oak leaves," said Nidnod. Fifo giggled. Dame Twinkle wrote everything down. "Oak leaves from Nidnod," she wrote, and then she looked at the brownie. "What will you bring, brownie?" she asked. "Ivy," said the brownie. "I pass plenty on my way to school. I think the leaves are so well shaped, Dame Twinkle. Some of them are dusty, but I can wash them and dry them and even polish them, can't I?" "Certainly," said Dame Twinkle, and she wrote down ivy leaves from the brownie. "I'll bring some dark green laurel," said Jinky. "What, that nasty dark stuff?" said Nidnod. "What dull trees and leaves you're all choosing. Dame Twinkle, I'll bring sprays of pretty birch leaves. They're so small and dainty, much better than the tough, leathery laurel leaves." "Very well, Nidnod," said Dame Twinkle, and wrote birch leaves besides Nidnod's name too. "I'll bring some yew from the churchyard," said Fifo. "And I'll bring the Christmas tree," said Dame Twinkle. "I have a dear little fir tree growing in my garden that will do beautifully for a Christmas tree. They're always spruce fir trees, you know." "Good," said Pippin. "Now we're all bringing something." "I'm bringing the most," said Nidnod proudly. "And I'm bringing the prettiest leaves too. The oak leaves, the chestnut leaves, and the birch leaves, much nicer than prickly holly and ugly laurel." "You won't bring anything, Nidnod," said Fifo with a giggle. Dame Twinkle rapped on her desk. "No talking now," she said. "Let Nidnod bring the things he wants to, and if he does, we'll be very grateful to him." Well, in 2 or 3 days, the school children began to look for the things they said they'd bring. Fifo found plenty of holly leaves and berries and began to string them together very clearly. She found some yew too, with its waxen pink berries. The brownie bought sprigs of ivy and washed, dried and polished each leaf until it shone. Jinky brought branches of dark green laurel, and Pippin brought fine pine branches full of needle-like leaves that pricked quite sharply. Dame Twinkle dug up the fir tree in her garden and set it in a pot. It looked lovely. The children longed to see it all dressed up in candles, ornaments and presents. And what about Nidnod? Well, he had promised to bring many things too. "Oak leaves," said Nidnod. "I will get those first. I know where the big oak trees grow in the middle of the wood." So he went to the wood and found the oak trees, but oh dear, what a pity. The one he went to only had a few brown leaves on that rustled and shook in the wind. It had no green ones on at all. "Bother," said Nidnod. "I must find another oak tree, I suppose." So he went to another one, but that had no leaves on at all. Its branches spread out bare and brown. Nidnod scratched his head. "What a nuisance! I see that all the oak trees are bare. Now, why didn't I think of that? I didn't remember they dropped all their leaves in the autumn." He went to where the big tall chestnut grew, its branches spreading wide on every side. He looked up to find some leaves, but there were no leaves there. Not one of the pretty fan-shaped cluster of leaves was to be seen. The tree was bare except for its brown buds, already growing fat. "Well, well, well, so the chestnut tree has dropped its leaves too," said Nidnod, feeling cross. "How annoying! Why didn't I remember that? Well, I expect the other children too will find they can't bring some of the leaves they said they would. I shan't be the only one." He went to find a silver birch tree. He saw the pretty silvery white trunk shining between the trees and ran to it. But alas, the birch tree was also bare. Nidnod could pick no leaves from it, for the birch tree had drawn them all down in the autumn. There she stood, her fine thin branches waving gently around her like a mist of brown, but not a leaf was to be seen. "Then I must bring something else, I suppose," said Nidnod, feeling cross with himself. He looked around the woods. What should he bring? He couldn't bring pine branches because Pippin had chosen those. He couldn't bring yew or holly because Fifo had said she would bring them. He couldn't bring ivy because Brownie was bringing it. "I can't bring anything. All the others have chosen the things I could bring," said Nidnod, and he began to cry. Next morning, all the children except Nidnod had brought their Christmas decorations. Only Nidnod's hands were empty. Dame Twinkle looked at him. "Where are the oak leaves, the chestnut leaves and the birch leaves you said you would bring, Nidnod?" she asked. "They've all dropped their leaves," said Nidnod gloomily. "I was silly. I forgot that only evergreens kept their leaves on in the winter time. I suppose that's why they have such tough, leathery sort of leaves. They've got to last for much longer than a year." "Poor Nidnod," said Dame Twinkle, as everyone began to laugh at him. "So you are the only one left out of the Christmas decorations. Go out into the garden and see if you can find something green to bring in. There may be an evergreen there we have forgotten to use." So Nidnod went into the garden, and he saw the hedge of green privet that ran round the beds. "Oh, good," said Nidnod, as he picked some sprays. "I don't like you very much, privet, but you are green, and you are green in the winter time, and will give me something to take for the Christmas decorations." So Nidnod brought some green leaves after all, and decorated the school clock very nicely with sprays of privet. I do wonder what you would have chosen to bring if you had belonged to Dame Twinkle's school. You wouldn't have made a mistake like Nidnod, I'm sure.